Koto, lovely subscribers. As you can see, I'm in my mobile studio looking out at the sea. Now it's just past sunset. I think I wanted to get here in time to show you the sunset, but didn't quite manage that. But you get to see the beautiful sky and stuff while we talk about something really important, actually. So I have many roles. One of which is I work for, or I'm on the board of directors for a local agency that helps prevent family violence, domestic abuse, and that's part of my work as well. And I don't often talk about the organisations that I'm involved with. I'm not ashamed of them, quite the opposite, but I'm a bit worried that some of my more fringe interests might make them look bad, so that's why I kind of quite often don't mention them. When I say my fringe interests, I'm not talking about anything nefarious. It's just my interest in things like the paranormal and that kind of thing, which you know, sometimes can put people off. So but yeah, that's one of my roles. So I'm very interested in relationships. I mean, with psychotherapy, that's something that everybody talks about in a relationship. It's just so important to everyone, even if for the people that well, there's a huge flock of seagulls there. Give you a look at those. They formed almost like a murmuration the other day. There were so many, it was quite something. That's a nice view, isn't it? So this is the channel where we go off on tangents and I interrupt myself, and it's all very chatty and informal. And that's how we like to do things on this channel. If you want something a bit more slick, you're in the wrong place, mate. Find another channel. But this is kind of a conversational, there's also a neurodiverse channel, but we won't get into that one today. That's another big subject. Yeah, I'll try and keep the camera on those birds for a little while. Let's just see if I can zoom you in on them. They've got a bit small, haven't they? It's nice, isn't it? So for those of you that aren't interested in the topic, you've got a soothing view and you can listen to my velvety voice and relax. So, get on with it, Markie. What's the topic of today's video? Well, I want to talk about how to pick a partner and essentially really how to keep yourself safe, really, because you pick the wrong partner, you're in trouble. I always think, you know, most people come across as fairly nice and likable and sociable and friendly unless you form a relationship with them, as in a person, you know, an intimate relationship, or you work with them, and then the power dynamics start to come out. And there's an All About Eve is a band that I talk about quite a bit. They're one of my favourites, and I've analysed some of their songs and done videos on that if you want to check that out. They've got or a spin-off band from All About Eve called Mice. Had a song lyric which went supercalifragilistic can get sadomasochistic so quickly, and I think that's very, very true, because the worst relationships, the abusive relationships, often start with love bombing. You know, people don't kind of come into a relationship being nasty and abusive. That comes further down the line. You know, they're all charm and kindness and doting attention, and then it becomes abusive. And I've just seen so many people in horrific relationships, and I'm not even just talking about the abusive ones. I mean, obviously, you know, that's the extreme of a bad relationship. It's an abusive relationship. But you can have a bad relationship that's not strictly abusive. You know, it's just that the other person is a real pain in the arse and can make your life quite hard and very difficult. So it's important to pick a good partner. And some people, you know, have a desperate need not to be single. You know, they'll kind of pick almost anyone. But I've thought about this and kind of boiled it down really to its essentials. And there is a way, I think, that will help you or anyone you know avoid getting into an abusive relationship, or in a relationship with somebody that's just a bit of an asshole, really, or just a bit of a nuisance. And if you're talking lifelong relationship, you don't want to be with somebody that's a nuisance. Now, every person, every individual has their annoying habits and their annoying traits, and you will too, and I have. I've got loads. I'm incredibly annoying. I couldn't live with myself as a partner. I'd drive myself nutty. So it's not about trying to find perfection. That's not what we're talking about here. But we're trying to find kind of a good enough relationship. Now, people find themselves attracted to people or seek out partners based on a vast array of factors. I'm studying the camera a bit now because I was wobbling around a bit, probably making you feel seasick. So, and lots of books have been written on this, and videos made, and studies done, and stuff. But I'm going to boil it down to 3 simple factors, with a kind of a 4th one hanging on the fringes, just to mention in passing. But essentially 3 things. Okay, so one is appearance. So we're attracted to people based on their physical appearance, which might also include the way they present themselves, the way they dress, their hygiene, how they, take care of their hair and that kind of thing. It might include things like makeup. This is, I think, is a second flock. I haven't noticed such big flocks of seagulls until quite recently. I don't know if it's a seasonal thing. Let me follow those and give you a bit more of a... I've noticed smaller flocks, but I've never noticed such big flocks around here. But it might be this time of year. Or it could be a bit Alfred Hitchcock, Daphne du Maurier. Anyway, so appearance, which would include a kind of physical attractiveness. A person had a good look, didn't they? So that's a big one for people. And it's nice to have a partner that you find physically attractive and that they're easy on the eye, and sometimes we have a type. But it's not the most important. Okay, and then the other thing that kind of a big bearing on who we're attracted to is status. Now, when I say status, you're going to immediately think of things like social class. Is this person working class, middle class, upper class? Although I think that's quite an outdated model, really. But the strata of society, which is often associated with income and education and background and that kind of thing. But that's not so much what I'm talking about. It does include that, what I'm about to say, but when I talk about status, I'm generally talking about something that's a little bit more subtle and is more to do with how people present. So, because when you talk about status, a lot of people watching this will think, well, I don't care. I'm not a snob. I don't care about status. It doesn't affect me. And that might be true, but there are some more subtle aspects of status that probably do affect you. And what I'm talking about here is, how can I describe it? There is something that happens among human beings that we automatically and unconsciously assess what we think our status is in comparison to other people. And it's not limited to external factors like wealth, education, background. Okay, a lot of it is to do with confidence and assertiveness. So when we meet people, we unconsciously ask ourselves, what's the status of this person? Are they higher status than me, lower status, or equal? And there's a great channel called the Charisma Matrix that talks about this, YouTube channel talks about this in great detail, and it's essentially it's about how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive others. So ultimately we give ourselves like a kind of an unconscious grading, an unconscious score in terms of personal social status. So sometimes we'll see ourselves as high status. So somebody that's narcissistic will see themselves as grandiose, elevated status. You know, they're the best person in the world. And somebody that's just confident will see themselves as quite high status. And somebody who's lacking in confidence will see themselves as lower status. And you'll see this in schools. You know, it's very evident in schools, and everyone talks about this now, don't they? There's different groups in school. There's like, you know, I mean, when I was at school, it was like the sporty and intelligent kids were kind of top of the pecking order, if you like. And then at the bottom of the pecking order, you would, I don't even know that they were the bottom of the pecking order because they had quite high status as well. But you'd have the naughty kids, and some of those, you know, had quite high social status. I mean, it's interesting. There's a Maori word called mana. So street cred. So mana, street cred, confidence, how you feel about yourself and how that reflects to others. So you'll have different social groups in school. And then interestingly, I started to look at it as a hierarchy with the good, sporty, intelligent kids on the top and the kind of the more kind of like criminal kind of kids on the bottom. But both of those actually probably have quite a lot of mana or status in the way that I'm using the word, because the kind of naughty kids have this edgy kind of street cred thing to them. Now at schools, you could probably imagine I was in neither of these groups. I was close, you know, in many ways I could have been quite close to being in the upper hierarchy of being because I was intelligent. I was in the higher sets for most things at school, but I have dyspraxia, so I can't do sport to save my life, and I'm also autistic, so that threw me mainly into the geeky subgroup, and that's kind of changed over the years because the geeks now are there's geek chic now, isn't there? Because in this computer age, you know, the autistic kids and the geeky kids, they're the ones that solve all our problems. So it's all kind of changed. But so I wasn't in the high status, and also because I've done a video on confidence, and have a watch of that because I've taken a very different tack on that to what most people, to how most people would see confidence. Most people think that everybody should be confident, and you know, confidence is a good thing, full stop. I think in a nutshell, I think your confidence should match your competence. And although I'm very competent in lots of things, because I have neurodivergent, I have things like ADHD and autism, I struggle socially, and a lot of the social struggle is to do with what we call executive function. So my brain can only do so many things or deal with so many things at the same time. So if I'm in a social situation and we're kind of chatting, but we're also walking along, you know, down a city high street or something like that, doing those two things together is actually quite difficult for me. You know, negotiating where you're going to walk and not bumping into people while, you know, maintaining kind of social intercourse, not sexual intercourse, social intercourse, is actually quite tricky. So although in the areas where I know I have competence, I'm very confident. In a lot of social areas, I'm not confident. And I used to think, oh, that's a really bad thing, and you know, I should be confident, and I bought into all that kind of nonsense. But actually, I now look at it, no, I shouldn't be confident because I'm not competent in those social areas. And it's very easy for me to make an ass of myself because I'll get things wrong or I'll do stupid things because literally my brain isn't able to juggle all the different things that are going on. So I often consider myself, and this is mainly like an unconscious process, but it's conscious because I become aware of it, often in the lower status area. So when I'm engaging with strangers, I often see myself as lower status than they are. I hope what I'm trying to describe comes across, but if it doesn't, if this is still leaving you kind of asking questions, do check out the Charisma Matrix channel, because there's lots of videos there, and essentially what he talks about on there is how how we carry ourselves and how we speak is what signals our status, and you can actually kind of fool the algorithm by presenting yourself in a different way. So, for example, somebody that considers themselves low status talking to somebody they consider as higher status, and the kind of feeling is mutual, they will use a lot of upward inflection, whereas people of higher status will use, or who perceive themselves as higher status, will use less inflection. So their voice will be more flat, or the voice might even drop at the end of a sentence. So it's really interesting. So suffice it to say that when we meet people, even though we might not be aware of it, we are picking up on their level of confidence and their manner, as the Maori word is far better than the English word, and essentially their social status. And then somebody could be from a aristocratic background and be very low confidence and have low perceived social status. So there's a sense of who we are and how high we are in that social hierarchy that we all have. Even if we deny it, we'll have that. And whenever we meet somebody, we always unconsciously make that analysis. Is this person the same status as me? Are they higher or are they lower? And we'll respond to them again unconsciously in a way that fits that. Okay, we'll have less time and give less respect ultimately to people we see as lower status. We'll feel very relaxed with people who are the same status, and we will feel a kind of performance pressure when we're talking to people we perceive to be of higher status. So that is something nobody ever talks about, apart from the Charisma Matrix channel. Thank you for that. But it has a huge impact on how we make friends and how we form relationships. So, and it's interesting because some people like to form relationships with people they perceive to be of lower status because it's less threatening. They feel they might be overwhelmed and dominated by somebody of higher status. So ideally, we want to be in a relationship with somebody that's of equal status. But we might also be enamored and what's the word? Enamored is a good word, but I feel like I need a second word just to back it up. And enchanted, that's a nice word, isn't it? Enchanted by people who are of higher status, and we can kind of sometimes feel that almost by forming a relationship with somebody of higher status, it will boost our own status. So these are all things that happen, whether we realize it or not. Okay, and then thirdly, but not lastly, because I'm going to throw in another element in a minute, but these are the key ones I want you to focus on. Thirdly is personality, but really when I say personality could also include the status. That's intrinsically linked to personality as well. It's all kind of connected, all these things intersect. But what I'm talking about really is decency. Is this person a kind, decent human being? Okay. And sometimes it takes a while to establish that. There are ways to fast track that assessment, because somebody can appear decent and kind and a generous person with good qualities, but it can all be a show. So there are certain ways to establish that. But out of those three, so we've got the status, we've got the decency, and all the good aspects of personality as well. All those things in personality. But it needs to be decency and kindness, ability to have empathy, generosity, all those, tolerance, all those things are, you can kind of summarize them under decency, and that's what I'm doing. Or physical appearance. Okay, so think about a life partner, someone you're going to spend the rest of your life with. Think about if you could pick somebody that only had one of those three, what would it be? And I'm hoping you're going to be saying decency. because ultimately that's the only one that matters. So what I'm talking about really is compromising. If you have to compromise, I mean, ideally you want the full package, don't you? You want somebody that's, that you find physically attractive and presents themselves in a way that you like. You want somebody that's equal or, the kind of you have to think about this status thing. I think it's a little bit concerning if you want a partner of lower status, because it kind of sends a signal that on some level you want to dominate them. So you need to go away and do some work on yourself. But some status. So generally speaking, you want someone of equal status. But higher might be okay, and decency. Think about long-term relationship, not just the honeymoon period, not just the excitement of all that kind of new relationship, sex and frisson, and what they might bring to your life in terms of their connections and their world, which also is part of status. Is it somebody that's, because that's something we can kind of get attracted to. This person's in the art world. They know everything about art, and they're going to introduce me to artists and take me to galleries, and that's all part of the status as well in a way, and it overlaps with personality. But if you had to pick one of those things, then for goodness sake, if you can only have one and you have to compromise, don't compromise on decency. Never compromise on decency in a partner. And then at the very least, you are going to have somebody that it's safe to be with, that is going to be respectful to you, that is going to have, there's going to be mutual give and take. They're going to take care of you when you're not well, when you need taking care of, when you need support. They're going to be kind, all those things. But if you have a high status, if you marry or have a relationship with, one of these Hollywood narcissists, you're going to have the high status, you're going to have the high attractiveness, certain aspects of their personality are going to be very magnetic, but if you haven't got the decency, where are you going to be, when you're in your 60s together, and you've got this arsehole that you're living with. So never compromise on decency in a partner. Decency, as I've defined it, includes lots of qualities. I don't have to have every good quality. There might be kind but not particularly generous. It might be a little bit on the stingy side. That's okay. It's the overall package. The overall package. I'm not talking about somebody that's perfect, but somebody that's decent, somebody that's kind, that will essentially put your needs on a par with their own. Not somebody that puts their needs first and yours second. That's what you need in a relationship. And also somebody that's a decency, somebody that's got I don't really like the word moral, because what does it really mean? You could delve deep into the meaning of the word moral, and it can just mean a certain set of values that are popular at the time, but somebody that is unlikely to harm other people, basically. Somebody that's unlikely to be some people have got a criminal past, and they're really nice people. I've some of my best friends are people that have been in jail in their younger years, or fallen foul of the law, but somebody that's actively criminal wouldn't qualify on the decency scale. Somebody that's come from a bit of a shady background but has improved themselves and moving towards a better place, absolutely. But just think about how horrible life can be and dangerous life could be if you attach yourself strongly to somebody that's a bad one, despite all the fact that they might be attractive, charismatic. And narcissists and psychopaths are often very charismatic, and people kind of have these on-off relationships with them because they find it hard to let them go, even despite all these really nasty qualities they might have. So I hope that's helpful, and I hope that's also kind of simple as well. It's a kind of simple formula, somebody that you like, or you think you might like, somebody maybe you've started a relationship with and it's in the early days, or somebody that you're hoping you'll start a relationship with, check out those 3 things as much as you can. And even if you've been with them for a little bit of time, if they score really low on that decency, consider getting yourself out of that relationship. And if they score on so low on decency that they're actually harmful, abusive, that you're actually not safe with them, that they might not necessarily that they'll be physically abusive, but somebody that's emotionally abusive, financially abusive, sexually abusive, any form of abusive that undermines you, puts you down, really, really bad news. And the longer you stay in that relationship and the more bonded you get, the harder it is to get out of it. So compromise on attractiveness if you have to, or on appearance if you have to. Compromise on status and in all the meanings of the word, especially the ones that I've just outlined, if you need to, but never, never, never compromise on decency. And with those words and shaking the camera, that is the trademark of this channel, all content and no style, I will say goodbye to you as the day darkens. I'll just give you a nice little view before we go of the red sky, the pink sky and the sea. This is rather lovely. Have a peaceful and wonderful evening, and may all your relationships be positive and healthy ones. Rangimarie.